You're
All
going to
right.
do the introduction, right?
Okay, here we go. In three, two, one, you're live.
Well, that was fast. Hey, everybody, this is the Jeremiah Show, and this is Mike Gormley sitting in today. I haven't been here for a while, so it's a real pleasure to be back. And congratulations to Jeremiah for 500 broadcasts so far. That was that as of today. I'm not sure the exact date, but it's around now sometime. And so we have with us from Florida, calling in from Florida, home of the hurricanes these days.
Home
Uh,
of Hurricane Nicole
yeah,
today.
yeah, today, right? But you're not. This is Susan Short. You're not near the hurricane, or how come you're so calm?
Well, I've been through, this is probably Hurricane 8 or 9 I've been through. So we were not directly in the path of the hurricane, although the cone of uncertainty, which is nobody's friend when you live in Florida, it kind of went in through like Palm Beach, Vero Beach, and it went up through Central Florida. So we weren't really in the direct line. And it's only a category 1, not to minimize it. So we only got tropical storm force winds, and it was just a little windy, and it's been a little rainy, but nothing as bad as our afternoon thunderstorms. So it wasn't like Hurricane Ian, which was pretty bad. It was devastating in certain areas.
Yeah, very much so. Right?
Yeah.
Did you have people in those areas at all that because you grew up in Florida, right?
Yes, I have friends down in Boca Grande, which is a beautiful, beautiful island. It's a barrier island. It's very famous. It's about an hour south of here, and a lot of homes and businesses were destroyed. And if the homes, because a lot of homes are on the water, and if the homes didn't have issues, then definitely the whole back area, most people have, big screen caged pools. So a lot of those structures were down. So fortunately, this current hurricane that we're experiencing right now is not affecting those areas. It came in through a slightly different path. And I just saw, not that we're talking about weather, but I just saw that I guess in 2004, we had 2 hurricanes 43 days apart, the same pattern, same time of year. One was in October, the other one November. So I guess it's, every 16 years, 18 years, we have something like this.
Oh, well, at least now you're getting it out of the way for the next for the next 16 years.
Well, who knows? They used to talk about El Nino, La Nina, El Nino. They used to talk about that a lot because they're different cyclical patterns, like wind patterns. I'm not a meteorologist, so I haven't studied it, but living in Florida and going through so many hurricanes, they would talk about that, and that affects sort of the weather patterns, not just climate change, but they haven't really been talking about that. I
Hmm.
think there's too many other things to talk about.
Right. Well, we've got other things to talk about too.
Yes, yes.
We got Susan to talk about. Um, Now, let's describe your world. I know you're very much in the social media world, but you also do other things. And of course, I know you from the music world, but you work with lawyers and art galleries and so on and so forth. How would you describe your job these days?
Well, it's hard to describe what I do, but I guess you would say that I'm a publicist, I'm a social media guru, expert. I have Family Beautiful Media, so I do all things media. I would like to say it that way. So I've had experience in all different genres of media, anything from radio, which we're on right now, which one of my first jobs out of college was at a classical radio station. I've done TV, I've done production, I've done commercial production on a really high level. I can go into that later. I own a magazine. I've worked in magazines. I was the youngest Chamber of Commerce. They used to do this, Miami did a Chamber of Commerce directory, and they also did they probably still do it. It's a glossy magazine that's a visitor's guide. So I was the youngest manager, sales manager, ad manager for those two publications. in Miami. So that was a big deal. And then I moved here to Sarasota and I started a magazine about 12 years ago called Family Beautiful Magazine. So we've parlayed that into a media company. So the magazine exists online. Since the pandemic, we haven't really been producing the magazine, but I still do have wonderful experiences. I have writers that have written for me, who have done over 100 articles on different places. And I myself have traveled all over the world on behalf of Family Beautiful Magazine. So now it's more of a media company. Most of my advertising clients now are my social media clients. So I create their content, I produce their video content, I produce their photo content, I do graphic design, I do website design, I do everything. Not always all myself.
No, you do for a lot of different clients.
Yes.
You've got, as I said, art galleries, a law firm, some rock stars. It travels now. How do you balance all of that? Because those are very different organizations or very different elements, and you must have a certain way to go to the public for each one, or how does that?
Well, most of the clients come recommended to me. So if I get that's how most of my clients are recommendations. And I've been doing this for a while. So a lot of the clients, that may or may not be doing business with me still recommend me for other clients. So I don't really go out and solicit. They're recommended to me. So I have a big group. I have a big medical group that does physical therapy. They're chiropractors. They do auto accident therapy. They have 5 offices in Florida and 5 in Kentucky. Throughout Kentucky, they're super highly rated, 5 stars on Google all the time. I manage all of their SEO on their website. I do all their content development. I do all their blog development. I do all their social media marketing. But that came as a recommendation.
Recommendation from somebody in their business or in your
a law firm. It came from the law firm that I do business with, which they probably have 25 offices, but they have 4 active social media accounts that I manage for them. They have 4 Facebook accounts, 2 Instagram accounts, 1 Twitter account. I don't do their website because I came in after someone had already been working on their website. So I don't do their website because I'm very honorable of, other people's business. So anyway, so they recommended me because they were having SEO problems. The doctors that, they were looking to boost their social media marketing, and they had bad experiences with other companies that they had hired because they generally pawned it off to people who weren't really the head of the company. They pawned it off to, the work to other people who weren't doing a really good job. They didn't approach it as if it was their business.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It's I'm still like, you work with some rock stars.
I do.
And that's got to be very different than the law firm. It's got to.
Not really, because it's all creative. I look at it this way. The elements and the basis of what I do the same thing for all of my clients. And I look at their, if I manage rock stars, they're a business, they're an entity, they are their business, they're the entity, they're their own brand. So managing their brand is the same thing as managing a brand that's a law firm or a medical office. The content is different, but the quality and the professionalism is the same. So, it's really important when I talk to, say, younger artists or artists that haven't really been in the business and they haven't really been doing this professionally for a really long time, I always stress to them that they are their brand and they don't understand that. So everything they do is their brand. Mm-hmm. So if their brand is, 100% rock and roll, 100%, all in, all dialed in, they have to be true to that brand. They shouldn't deviate from what their fan base wants, because their fan base is really what buys their music, listens to their music, watches them on YouTube, listens to them on Spotify. They don't want to deviate. They can, once they've established themselves, they can deviate. They can do, say, they could drop a jazz album, or they could drop another type of genre. But from what I do is I would give the same advice, and I do the same high quality graphic design and marketing for all the clients within whatever genre it is. And it makes me, it's really interesting for me because I'm not just doing one thing all the time.
Well, I'm sure, yeah, it makes it interesting for you.
Yes. And I love it because I learn a lot. I do. I learned a lot about
How
health.
did you learn social media? Did you study it, or you just started doing it? Or because I'll tell everybody you're so good at it, and you
Thank you.
understand. You don't just, it's not like just a PR thing. You're actually doing some technical stuff, and you're doing
Yes.
some building and so on and so forth, and you're directing a lot of clients who don't know anything about it.
Yes.
So how'd you learn all that?
Well, some of it I studied, and some of it, I learned I mean, I've been doing this for a while. So don't forget, as a magazine publisher, I saw the trends coming way before the general public saw the trends. So I was an early adopter. So I adapted all of the social media for my platform, for Family Beautiful, before I was doing it for the client. So as a result of that, I learned how to maximize Facebook. I learned how to maximize Instagram. I learned how to maximize YouTube. I learned how to maximize Twitter. I learned how to maximize TikTok. I have to stay ahead of the trends because that's my job. So I always try to be ahead of it instead of trying to backtrack and learn it after the fact. So I have a lot of design experience from designing the articles for the magazine. So I'll tell you a fun story. So I used to work with art directors all the time, and I would pay a lot of money for the art directors. This is back in like 2012, maybe 10 years ago, 2014. So, I would do the magazine quarterly, and I would, work with these art directors, and they would never do exactly what I wanted. It would be close, but not exactly. No matter how much I would tell them what the style is that I wanted, and, what I wanted to do, what kind of font I wanted, how I wanted the photos laid out, it wasn't 100% what I wanted to do. And definitely the clients that were advertising, a lot of times I would get ads in, and I couldn't stand the ads. They were horrible. So the art director would be like, oh, well, you have to learn all these programs, and this is very complicated, and this and that. And I thought to myself, if this person is doing it, I can certainly learn how to do it. So I learned how to do it. And so as a result, I was able to do all the design for the magazine myself, and I cut back on the costs of doing that.
And that led to
Social media design
knowledge that's helping clients now.
Yes, 100%.
It's now, okay, you mentioned maybe being able to, you knew what was coming along. What's coming along now? Any idea where this is all going, or how it's going to be used?
Well, social media is here to stay. I don't work for Facebook. I don't work for Instagram. I don't work for TikTok. I definitely don't work for Twitter, or any of or YouTube, or Google, or anything like that. But, the platforms are here to stay. So they have, you have to have a social media presence. It's just the way it is. I didn't make the rules. I didn't come up with it. That's just the way it is. So my recommendation, my forecast is video is really the hot thing right now. Photos, stills are important, but it's the algorithm picks up the video content. So video is everything. I recommend this to all of my clients. I recommend it to my music clients. I recommend it to my restaurant clients. I recommend it to my law firm clients. And they do understand that because they've actually been advertising. They're early adapters. They've been advertising on YouTube for a really long time. Some of their videos have like 500,000 views. So, and it really has a good high turnover rate for them as far as like pay-per-click and things like that. But that's a whole other technical thing we don't have to get into because we want to talk about fun things. But Honestly, I think that video is, and I know video is where it's at. So, and it doesn't have to be super, I mean, quality is always really important, but you shouldn't let that, shouldn't let budget get in your way. You can create, sorry, I'm talking so much. You can create great video, with your iPhone. You can create a lot of good video yourself and just have a good editing program. Use good lighting, but really important, especially for musicians, to have music videos for all of their songs that they drop, not just one song, for all of their songs, and advertise it and promote it on YouTube, because a lot of people are leaving some of the other platforms like Spotify that have paywalls up, and they like YouTube because you can do YouTube playlists. So
I see. Okay. But what you're talking about generally is content. From what I understand, you can put things together online, whether social media or a website or something like that. Especially with social media, the client has to participate. They have to be giving. They almost have to feed you information and things. So that,
no,
no.
not necessarily. No. I'm very autonomous. So I create content. For instance, I have a client that is a very big custom RV company. So I create content for them. So I hire a videographer, I hire a photographer, I hire a drone person, I hire models, sometimes I model, and I do all the styling for it. And we do a shoot generally once a month. We do drone footage on location, we do sets and things like that. So I develop all the content for them. So and I've been developing content for them for a while. They actually went with somebody else and they came back to me because the content that I developed was the best content they've ever used. I mean, there's some photo shoots that we did that were very funny, like 5 years ago. They were wonderful photo shoots, but we did them on the beach at sunset. This isn't the one that I just recently did, but this is something I did about 5 years ago. And we had 5 of the coaches. Now we can't do 5 at a time because they can't get the parts. So, and they're in such high demand that we have to do 1 at a time. But we had 5 drivers and they locked the keys in one of the coaches in an area that we shouldn't have been in. And it also not only did the keys get locked in it, but it got stuck in the sand. So we had to have somebody go back and get another set of keys, which is very far away. And we had to have 2 of the vehicles towed, and we still got amazing photos. So the show always must go on.
All of that scenario you're talking about, the keys and the sand and so on and so forth, do you make use of that too? I mean, is it kind of like
No, that we didn't use. No,
behind the scenes?
No, we didn't use that. No,
But
with
with musicians and artists, behind the scenes can be important.
Oh yes, 100%. With musicians and artists, definitely. They love, fans love behind the scenes. Fans love to see setup. Fans love to see sound check. They love to see rehearsals. They love to hear what the person is thinking. They want to hear what, especially the well-known stars, they want to know what goes through their head or what they've eaten for dinner or, anything like that. They want to see it. They want to hear it. They do. It's a thing. So
that's pretty invasive. That's you're going right into their lives that way. And a lot of entertainers, performers, whatever it might be, kept the public persona and kept their life as private as possible. Now you're saying, let everybody see it and see what's going on in your life.
Well, this goes to your brand also. You don't want to be, well, it depends. It depends on who it is, right? And it depends on how much the artist is willing to do. So, it's nothing, nothing is sacred, as Kim Kardashian blew that out of the water. So nothing is sacred. It's all out there. Every single bit of information. If you want to be a celebrity at this point in 2022 going into 2023, you know, the fan base builds on seeing all the behind the scenes. That's just the way it is. They want to know what you're thinking. They want to know what you eat. They want to see in your refrigerator. They want to look in your closet. They want to look at your shoes. They want to look at your guitar collection. They want to know where you go on vacation. They want to know your favorite restaurant. They just want to know everything. And, you know, that's just one of the things that social media has sort of done. Now, you don't have to participate in that if you don't want to, but if you want to keep building your brand, you can create the content. You can curate content. Like I create my own content for myself and my brand as well, but I curate the content. I don't necessarily do a tour of my closet. I could, but I don't necessarily do that, but you can. So people like to see it. They really do. They love it. They want to see what you did when you were on tour in Japan. They want to see what you ate. They want to see, you know, what it's like to get in and out of the transportation. They love that.
Cool. We're getting close to a commercial.
Okay.
So we'll slide out of what we're talking about here, but we'll be back in a little while and talk about various things in the life of Susan Short. As you can tell, it's pretty dynamic, and maybe we'll get you to reveal some of the things that the artists you're working with that they didn't let people see. I don't know if you can do that, but
yeah, I got some good stories.
yeah, I'll bet.
I have some great stories actually.
That you can tell.
I have a couple good ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, Jeremiah, we got some music to listen to going into a commercial. What do you?
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
going
this
on?
is Jeremiah here, previously the host of this show, but now it's Mike Gormley Presents, and he promoted me. Now I just announce songs. I'm just like a DJ. So Mike Gormley has demoted me to that, but I can do a good one here. This is
Maybe it's a
Tuxedo.
promotion. Maybe it's not demotion. It's
It's
promotion.
a promotion.
Everybody loves a good DJ, Jeremiah. Come on now.
Well, hey, I love this song. This is Tuxedo. And
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're clear. Stand by.
Okay, wait. Give it a pause for a second. I'm running out of questions.
Okay.
You're covering,
Well, ask
you're
me
covering
about
so
some of the
much
great
so
trips.
quickly. Pardon?
Ask me about some of the great trips. I have some good Rick Derringer stories to tell. I have a good Les Dudek story to tell that involves Steve Miller. That I have the footage of that, which I've never released.
Hey, guy. Well, and you know what might be kind of cool is why did you choose these songs? I was curious I mean, Skunk to me is obvious, but Tuxedo, I didn't know that
It's
you
a playlist. It's a
oh, it's just a
playlist.
playlist.
No, it's
Jamiroquai,
a
I love
playlist.
him.
When I work out in the morning,
Oh,
because
this is the
I
playlist.
love this band Jungle. I put some Jungle in there.
Yeah.
It's like a really hot new sort of. It's cool. So, and because I like Jungle, it recommended Tuxedo. So
Oh,
that's yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna,
listen,
I'm
let me
gonna
ask
ask
you,
that question, so don't give too long an answer because we're
is
gonna.
that Saturday's Child? Is that Jungle?
That is
No,
an artist.
that's Doug.
Doug.
You don't know Doug yet. He's coming on your show probably in the first of the
Oh,
year.
that's Doug. Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you put Jungle? I don't see Jungle here.
All of the time. Oh, Heavy California. Do you
That
see
might
Heavy
have got cut.
California?
We could only use 7. Maybe it was one that
Oh.
sorry.
Okay, I'm ready.
Did you get a Sting one?
You could do
English
it
from New
over
York?
time. We'll play that for you.
Yeah.
Okay, bringing it back.
We're coming back in.
So this is Susan's playlist.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back to Mike Gormley Presents on the Jeremiah Show. We have the pleasure of Susan Short on Mike's guest today, and she gave us her playlist. I love that. This is just heard Jamiroquai, 7 Days in Sunny June.
Oh, I love Jamiroquai.
Yeah, I do too. That song was a lot of fun.
Love
The
this
video's
song.
great. Back to you, Mike Gormley. Take it away.
Yes, well, Jeremiah presents, Mike Gormley presents. It's a piggyback sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the chance to be here. We're talking about the music. You chose the music for today that takes us to and back in from commercials. It's pretty eclectic. Is it? is it clients? Is it just music you like? And how do you know, where did all that come from?
Well, I love music, so it's a combination of some of my clients, not all my clients, because some of them haven't dropped the music yet, and they might be on the Jeremiah show. So I didn't use everybody's music, but and I don't want to take their surprise. I don't like to steal their thunder, but it's clients and it's music that I listen to from different eras. So it's my playlist that I work out all the time. I'm really a big, proponent of physical exercise every day. So it's a lot of songs that I'm listening to on my playlist. So I figured it'd be fun to share it with everybody. Absolutely.
You up early working out and all that? I mean,
Well, it depends on what you think early is. Like some people we know don't get up till 2 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon. So, early would be like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
decent.
and I'll usually work out before 9. I like to get it done, get it over with because, I have a long day. I have a lot to accomplish. I got a lot of graphic design. I got a lot of Zoom meetings. I've got a lot of clients. I do events. I do a lot of things. I have shoots. So I got to get it all in there. Absolutely.
Well, every morning you work out?
I work out every day. I never skip a day. Unless I'm traveling. Like if I'm traveling, I was traveling a couple weeks ago. I was in Nashville for an event for a client. And then, so I wasn't able to work out on the travel days. That's a little too much because I'm running through the airport. So that's a workout. Yeah. I'm dragging bags.
You should be interested to know that Mick Jagger, who's sort of a neighbor of yours, isn't he? He's not too far away.
Yeah.
Well, he's his father was a sports writer, wrote a book about basketball, which I don't know why in England he wrote a book about basketball, but he did. And I heard this many, many years ago from Chris Jagger, Mick's brother, younger brother, that he and Mick couldn't go out at night, couldn't leave the house until they'd done their workout session. That was the rule of the house. Now you look at Mick Jagger now running around the stage. He's almost 80 years old. Evidently, it's a good philosophy. It's a good rule to go by.
100%. I know some people that saw him at Publix actually, and some people recognized him, but some people didn't. Because you just don't expect to see Mick Jagger shopping at Publix.
No,
No.
you wouldn't.
For himself.
But evidently he does, at least when he's in Florida.
Well, here in Sarasota, people are pretty low key. No one's going to bother you. No paparazzi's going to. I don't even think we have paparazzi here. We have a lot of photographers, but I don't think they would run over to Publix to take a photo with Mick. Maybe they would. Maybe they would.
Some
They'd
would.
like to talk to
Some would,
him and hang out for sure.
But earlier you were talking about that you'd been around the world because of your magazine.
Yes.
Where around the world? I mean, like specifically, or at least give some highlights, some things that, you've been some pretty interesting places.
I have. So I've been to the North Pole and the South Pole.
In the
all
same
the
year,
same
right?
year.
Yeah.
I
Right.
did it in the same year. So the rule of thumb for travel writers, travel journalists usually is the further away the place is and the more exotic the destination, the easier it is to get the story.
Mhm.
So everybody wants to go to Paris. Everybody wants to go to London. Everybody wants to go to Barcelona. Everybody wants to go to the south of France or Italy. Although Italy's pretty easy to do a travel story, and I can tell you about Italy. I went to a cooking school in Italy. I don't necessarily like to cook, but a friend suggested we go to this cooking school called the Awaiting Table. And I said, well, I don't really like to cook. I definitely don't like to make pasta from scratch. I mean, it would be someone's dream to do that. That just wasn't my dream. I mean, I'll go to Italy and I'll go biking or I'll go hiking or I'll go, whatever. I'll go exploring all the art galleries and the museums, but not necessarily cooking, maybe a day or two. But this was very intense. And I'll tell you about the North and South Pole after that. But so I went with a very good friend of mine from Michigan, and I went with another friend of mine who lives in South America now. So we all met in Rome. We took the train to this small town called Lecce, which is in the Puglia region of Italy, which is in the heel of the boot. So we met the head of the cooking school with other people in Lecce, which is the city of like blonde stone. It's beautiful, not blondes, but blonde stone, and it's beautiful. It was gorgeous. We stayed in this great hotel, and the first day we stayed in his cooking school, and then we all went on these buses to this castle in this little town called Spangano. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little town. There was only this castle where the cooking school was, and it was in November. It was around this time of year, actually. It's about 5 years ago. It was in November, and it was raining. It rained like the whole time. We only had one day where it wasn't raining. So we didn't stay. My friend from South America and I did not stay in the castle per se with all the other guests. We stayed on the outskirts, like in the property. It was a walled-in castle. It was a legit castle. So we stayed in the converted, and this is hilarious, the converted pigsty.
What? Converted pigsty.
So when they said, like, you're staying in the converted pigsty, I was like, no, we're not. And they're like, yeah, you are. It was like these buildings that they converted. It's a guest house now. So we had a little apartment, and my friend knew that I was horrified at this. And I was doing a story on this. So, she tried to make the place as nice as possible for me. And the chef, who was very, very dictatorial, he was like a dictator chef. Anyway, so he was staying kind of near us, but we had to kind of trudge through the property in the rain at night after we had all these dinners and whatever we were doing. So it wasn't ideal, but it was funny, and it was like a fun story. They bought us these like really cool designer Italian wading boots because they felt bad for us and they knew I was doing a story. And they were cool. They were kind of cool. I wouldn't be caught dead in them normally, but I had to wear them because if not, my shoes would have gotten ruined. But we had a great time. They had like a special kitchen it was kind of downstairs in the castle, and they had it all retrofitted, and we cooked by candlelight. There was it was about 18 of us, and we had all these different helpers, and I learned how to make pasta from scratch, and I learned how to make all these different things from scratch. Not that I would ever apply these things. I mean, I have the knowledge, but I'm not necessarily going to do it. So we only had one.
Did you write about it? You ended up writing about it?
I wrote about it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And then we went to after that, we went to this fabulous area called Matera. And it's a cave city in Italy. And that's where they just shot the last James Bond movie, You Only Die Once, the one where Daniel Craig gets died off. I thought to myself, when I saw it, that place looks familiar. That's Matera. I'm like, that looks like the hotel I stayed at. And that was it. So that's beautiful, beautiful, magical, amazing. That's a must do. It's on the historic sites of the world. People used to live in the caves, and then it became sort of a health hazard because they would live with their animals in the caves. It was awful.
Really?
And so they did in Italy. I guess that was like up to like the 50s, and then it went into disrepair, and then it became a national heritage site, and now it's like super hot and trendy. So now it's like almost unaffordable. You can't live there anymore. But you're living in caves, and all the hotels are actually built into caves, and the hotel rooms are part of the caves. It's really cool.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. So yes, not that year I didn't go. That year I did not go to the North Pole and the South Pole. That would have been too much. But the year that I did go, I'll tell the North Pole story because that's a lot of fun.
We're gonna head into another little bit of commercial time here, so don't get started. We'll
Okay.
but we'll pick up on that when we come back and find out about the North Pole and the South Pole, and that. I'm interested to find out what got you there, other than the beauty of it. But we got.
They look very similar.
Yeah. Snow.
Well, there isn't really snow, but there's like the tundra.
Ice or something.
Yeah.
Tundra.
It's tundra. There's no plants. Everything is like above ground, and it's like squishy. Yeah, it's tundra.
So Jeremiah, we got
No
some
heels.
music.
Oh, I'm still working for you, Mike?
Yeah, you're still on. Just gonna do some songs. Quit fooling around.
Oh, I know. I should just tell us what we're listening to, Jeremiah, and stop talking. I was loving the conversation. I want to go to Italy right now.
You
Yeah,
have to go to Matera. You have to go to Matera. It's a really cool place.
I will put that on my list, Susan. Thank you for so much for the recommendation. And I wanted to play a guy here that coming up next that probably nobody's ever heard of, Jeff Skunk Baxter. Mike, this is a beautiful song. Tell me about it a little bit before.
What
Just
song is it? I'm not sure.
Juliet.
Julia.
Yeah, it is a beautiful song. It's
Skunk's new album.
I believe it's his mom's name.
Oh,
You know, I'm forgetting the story behind it. Bad me. But
it's pretty. It's very beautiful.
yeah. Let's hear a bit of it.
We're gonna listen to Juliet. Jeff Skunk Baxter. We'll be right back.
All right, stand by. Let me load you up.
Have you been to Puglia?
Me or Mike?
You, either.
No, in Italy. I've just been to kind of where the college where you go. Everybody goes. Venice and Florence and the Amalfi Coast. I had a lot of fun there. Cinque
Beautiful.
Terre and all the cities there. The four cities.
The only part of Italy I've been to is basically, I guess it's North Italy. Anyway, it borders on France.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there with the Bangles. We were doing it was Paul Simon, Whitney Houston, and the Bangles.
Wow,
It was,
that sounds like a good trip too.
and
Yeah.
we went to dinner with Duran Duran, and almost got killed when people climbing on the car. It was pretty amazing time. So I actually had one weekend in Italy, and that's what it was like. So I didn't get around too much.
Mike, was that when you stepped on backstage and you looked out at 100,000?
No, that's Live Aid in Philadelphia back in 1985. And
Well, was that your first time in Italy and Whitney Houston and the rest on a tour, or had they been?
No, it was one show. It was the San Remo Festival, which is basically a TV show, and but it was very interesting. I think that's why Duran Duran were there also. But we ended up going to dinner with those guys, and it was good fun. They were nice guys.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll bring us back and you guys can continue.
3, 2, 1.
That was Jamiroquai, Love Philosophy.
Oh, yeah. Heidi Klum was in that one in the video. Yeah.
I thought that was Heidi. Yeah,
That's Heidi Klum. Yeah.
that is a good video. And I thought at the end there where what is that machine that's keeping him
He's
flying?
flying. Yeah. They had to I heard that they had to kind of sew his tie onto the jacket. It was like an Armani suit or something, so that it would stay in a certain position, or put some wire in it. Yeah.
Yeah, his shirt stayed tucked in and everything. He
Yeah.
looked good enough. The air dropped and he picked up with Heidi Klum again.
Yeah.
Here's Mike Gormley and Susan Short.
Thank you, Jeremiah. This is the Jeremiah Show, and evidently he's calling this section Mike Gormley Presents, which is true. I'm presenting Susan Short, and we're going to hear some stories about the North Pole and the South Pole that you visited all within the same 12 months period. Is that right?
I did.
Was it all one story connecting the two, or were two different?
No, it was separate. It was separate. So I am friendly through some other trips I took to Norway with the tourist board of Norway. Norway is it does very well because of the pipeline and things like that. So they love to host tourists, and it's a spectacular country. So I had been to Norway and gone to all the, regular tourists, like looking at all the fjords and the Geiranger Fjord and the waterfalls and the fjords that you see where the cruise ships go. And I've been to all those places. It was amazing. So then I said, well, I had seen this video of these guys that were on a sailboat, right? Sailing, because it's an archipelago of all these, small islands. There's a lot of coastline. Obviously, people know the Norwegian Vikings and things like that. So they were taking this sailboat up to the northernmost part of the Arctic Circle, and they sailed to the destination, and then they skied. Then they actually hiked up and they skied. And at one point they hella skied, and I thought, wow, that looks cool. I want to do a story on that, So he said, well, you have to really be I can ski, and I skied in Austria a couple of times for stories, but he said you have to be really, really, really an expert skier to do that, because it's not like they're grooming the slopes and things like that. But he said, we'll send you to Svalbard. And so I said, okay, that sounds cool. What's Svalbard? And he goes, oh, it's technically the North Pole. It's the island, it's the archipelago of islands that make up the North Pole. Because the North Pole isn't really a city. The North Pole is Svalbard. And the North Pole is really like a scientific outpost. It's just really a longitude and a latitude. So I said, great. And he goes, well, first you're going to go to Tromsø, which is the Paris of the North, which generous. That's kind of generous. I don't know if I would call it the Paris of the North. They do have a lot of music festivals, and they do have a lot of film festivals, and they have good sushi, and it's kind of cool. But I don't know if I would call it the Paris of the North. But we did a kind of an embed thing. I went with my son. At the time, he was about 14. So this was in the summer. And it basically never gets dark in the summer. It's light all the time. So, you can be out till 1 a.m. driving around, and it looks just like it does when it's 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. You can't tell the difference. So you have to have blackout shades to go to sleep. So anyway, so we embedded with this family above the Arctic Circle. We went fishing. So you get all different weather. It can be cold and rainy. It can sleet. It can be hot and sunny. You can get everything all in one day. So we did get that. So we went fishing on this fishing boat, and then we went to this kind of yurt where we had lunch in a yurt, which is a tent. I don't know if a lot of people know what a yurt is. And then we went back to the gentleman's house, and he had a son around my son's age, and they served us dinner, which was a reindeer stew. And,
Stew.
it was a reindeer stew. That wasn't the first time they served the reindeer stew. I'm not totally digging the reindeer, but, it has like a venison flavor. I'm not really a venison kind of person, but, it had a lot of vegetables in it, so that was fine. And afterwards, we went hiking all along this fjord, which was in his backyard, which was this vast area. It wasn't like a backyard that you think of. And we just went hiking around, and the fjord near his house, he said, had mines in there from World War II that had never been detonated or exploded. So that was kind of interesting. And then we left. I had my own car, and so we had to get back to where we were staying in Tromsø, which was about an hour away, but we had to take a series of ferries across the fjords, and this was at maybe like 11 o'clock at night. So here I am driving this Citroen car in Norway at night, which was day, but it was at night, onto these ferries across the fjords. And we did find our way back. And the GPS was only in Norwegian, but we did find our way back. So that was kind of fun. So after that, we took a flight to Svalbard, which is the North Pole. That's a 3-hour flight, 2.5, 3 hours from Tromsø to Svalbard. And you land, and it's got this sort of gray mist that sort of hangs over it. And when I got there, I thought to myself, well, I was there for a week. We were there for a week, and I thought to myself, well, I can't cry. So I'm just going to have to be strong. And a lot of people go on these cruises that they have this boat, I think it's called the Hurtigruten or something. I'm not pronouncing it right. So they have these cruises that go all over that area. And there's a lot of people that go on their bucket list, and they go there from all over the world. But we weren't going on one of the cruises. We were just going to be staying in Longyearbyen, doing all these like really cool adventure tours. So we get to the hotel, very cool. Everything looks like it was just built by IKEA. The whole town. So the thing about the town is there's more polar bears than there are people. So because of that, everybody is required, if you leave the town or anywhere outside of town, and there's only one road in the town that's paved. So if you leave town, you have to have a shotgun with you because polar bears are wild animals and they can kill you. But if you kill a polar bear, the mayor of Svalbard, of Longyearbyen, will come and get you and put you in jail. He'll come in his helicopter, no matter where you are. He'll put you in jail because it's a crime to kill a polar bear. So it's
Even in self-defense?
Even in self-defense.
Really?
So ideally, you don't want to run into a polar bear.
No,
you don't want to provoke a polar bear. Yeah.
That's the bottom line anyway.
Yeah.
The heck with the mayor. Just don't run into a polar bear and everything's okay.
100%, yes. So that's where the seed bank is for the world. So we went to the seed bank. Do you know what the seed bank is?
No.
There's a seed bank. So in case of Armageddon or an apocalypse, they have, I guess the World Health Organization or the League of Nations or the United Nations, they've created a seed bank that's in Svalbard because it's obviously a very remote area. No one's going to get to it. And it's built, the entrance is there and it's built way underground. And
I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
They have seeds from every possible plant. And I'm sure they've expanded it to embryos from all the different animals and things like that. So there's a lot of research that goes on in Longyearbyen, which is the town. So it's kind of interesting. There's like a university and there's a lot of the people that work in the hotels and restaurants are, students of the university from all over the world.
Very interesting. Now you went in there.
We went to the seed bank. Yeah, they don't allow you in there because of contamination, but we went right by that. Yes, which was great. So the most interesting thing that I did when I was there, and I don't want to take up too much time because I'm going to talk rock and roll, but we took a rigid inflatable boat to a former radio station, not a radio station like we're on, but kind of like a radio station. It's called Isfjord Radio. So I was told by the Norwegian Tourist Board that I was not to Google it and look it up because it was a surprise. So we had to wear survival suits on this rigid inflatable boat because we got there by water. You can also get there by dog sled in the winter. But we went in the summer, you have to go on the rigid inflatable boat. So it was my son and I on this rib in these survival suits, which are these, they're actually these gigantic survival suits, and you have to wear a helmet and goggles and these boots, etc., the whole 9 yards. And they're not 100% dry and it's not really warm, so it's kind of damp. So we're on this boat. And they give you, if you do fall into the Arctic Ocean, which you hopefully don't fall in the Arctic Ocean, you can survive, but I don't know for how long. I don't know what the situation would be like. So, we were just praying that wasn't the situation, right?
We need to pause here for radio commercial, but so I hate to break up the story, but.
Oh, I'll finish it and I'll make it quick.
There are rules, we have to go by.
Yes.
Anyway, Susan Short is with me, Mike Gormley, on the Jeremiah Show. And now Jeremiah is on with us, which is always a minor miracle, but there he is.
It's been raining up here, Mike, so I didn't go to the beach this time.
No, you're not at the beach. Well, geez. So you're at the pub.
Yeah, either at the pub or the beach. That's what you accuse me of. But you've promoted me or demoted me. We're still not sure to DJ for you, to call out the music, the great music here. High crimes and misdemeanors. Is this Arno Lucas?
It's Arno Lucas.
Love Arno.
Beautiful music. Beautiful piece
I thought
of
it was apropos since we just had those midterm elections. Yeah.
Yeah, good song. And I really love the what we play of it here coming up right now. And this is Susan Short's playlist. So thanks for giving us a playlist, Susan.
No problem.
All right. High crimes and misdemeanors.
Clear. final segment.
So this one is Saturday's Child by Doug. Doug
Doug
Legacy.
Legacy. Yeah, I just want to double check that. Okay.
He's a
Do we
great.
want to say Dr. Soundgood, Mike?
I'll say whatever you want me to say. I'm just the DJ.
I think you should say Dr. Soundgood and Doug Legacy.
Doug Legacy and Dr. Soundgood. That's the name of the band.
Okay.
Doug Legacy.
So
and
now I'm confused. What do you want me to say?
Doug Legacy.
Okay.
And Dr. Soundgood.
Yeah.
Okay. Doug, and this is Saturday's Child.
All right.
Okay.
2, 1.
That was Saturday's Child with Doug Legacy and Dr. Soundgood. Mike Gormley.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Susan Short is telling us a story about her trip to North Pole, and we had to interrupt, so we'll come back into it.
Okay, so we're on the rigid inflatable boat, right? And I've got some guy who's there. We've got a couple that are just vacationing and they're trying to go to the Isfjord radio that I don't know what this is about. My son and I, and we have some guy who's like an oil worker, because there's oil workers all over. And the guide's got the shotgun, of course, because we don't want, we could run into the polar bears. And we're on this small rigid inflatable boat in the Arctic Ocean. And so then they say, well, we have to make a stop. Do you mind? Because there's all these abandoned Russian mining towns in this area. There's one called Barentsburg, and there's another one. They have cabins all over. Some of them date back to World War II. Some of them are after World War II. So I'm like, well, do I have a choice? And they're like, well, we have to pick up these two guys. And, we're going to send off a flare. We're going to pull into this cove. And it's a cove, not like a beautiful Caribbean cove. This is a cove in the Arctic Ocean. It's like kind of rocky cove, with kind of gray water. And it's clearing up, so it's sunny. So we shoot off these flares and we see this cabin in the distance, and there's no foliage, there's no trees, there's no bushes, there's no grass. It's just sort of, it looks like the moon, honestly. It looks like the moon with water and some mountains too. So we see this cabin with some smoke coming out of it, and there's like antlers and some dead seal skins on the cabin. And I had been already in Longyearbyen for about a week, not a week, maybe 4 or 5 days. So I was used to the look already. Like if it was the first day, I might have been a little upset. Because you don't know what would be coming out of there. And it was just me. Hopefully the guide and the shotgun would be okay. But, I wasn't sure what to worry about. Falling into the Arctic Ocean, the strange men that were coming out of the weird cabin with the antlers and the seal skins, the oil rig guy, where we were going. It was too much. So I just kind of tried to relax. Anyway, so these two guys come out in like bright orange survival suits, and they sit down on the boat, and there's only room for 2 more people. So I was hoping that we would make it to our destination, which we did. We got there, and there was this rickety sort of rusty ladder that we had to climb up in order to get to where, it was actually the Isfjord radio station. And they had all these sled dogs there, and you could see the radio towers, and there was a building, and it looked, it didn't look completely run down, but it was weather beaten. So I wasn't expecting anything. And these 2 men were very cheerful. They spoke English really well, and they were chit-chatting. And I was trying to avoid them as best as I could, because I didn't understand, why they were with us or anything like that. So we get in, we take off our survival suits, we're wearing, whatever, our workout, our warm clothes and stuff. And we get in, and it's actually a beautiful hotel, and it's super clean, gorgeous. It's owned by a photographer and a Swedish model, and they got it from they bought it from the government for a very low price. And it's a thing now. And I did not realize it. So it was a huge surprise, because
It's not the Ice Hotel, is it?
It's not the Ice Hotel, no, but it was an abandoned radio station that they used during World War II and after.
Oh.
They made it into this really cool, very, very, very hard to get to, but apparently it's a thing in Scandinavia to stay at these very remote places and make them interesting. So there was a roaring fire, and there was beautiful Swedish modern furniture, and there was really interesting rugs and great art, and it was beautiful. They had, scented candles, and it was lovely, and they had a lunch prepared for us. It was reindeer stew, and we were sitting, of course, with bread. So I did have some bread in the reindeer stew. I did try to avoid the pieces of the reindeer, but anyway, and we saw reindeer walking around. They look like moose or elk. So the two guys, that they took off their orange survival suits, and they're very, very friendly and chatty. And we were still not sure if we should talk to them, but they really spoke English better than anybody else. So we ended up falling into a conversation with them. One turned out to be a great artist. I'll make the story short. And the other one was an IT guy that lived in Oslo, and they were just big fishermen. And that cabin that we picked them up at is sort of a famous fishing cabin that they got dropped off at a few days before with just a sat radio. And they were just there by themselves with a sat radio, no internet, nothing. And their friend made arrangements for us to pick them up. And that's why they were tagging along. So anyway, we became friendly with them. I'm still friendly with them till this day. They took us out when we got back. They told us where to go. There's only a few restaurants. And the day before we left, their friends spotted a pod of albino whales that were in the harbor, and they came and picked us up. And we saw these albino beluga whales, which was amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's something else. That's something.
Yeah.
You don't get to see that in your usual travels.
You don't. And then the moral of the story is, don't judge a book by its cover, because, I thought they might have been, just released on a prison release program, and they were great, and I'm still friends with them. So there's that. So you never know. You never know who you're going to run into whenever you're traveling.
So
yeah.
The time's going by quickly.
Okay.
And we were talking about, excuse me, some of the rock artists you've worked with, and you thought you mentioned Steve Miller, is that right?
Well, no, I don't work with Steve Miller, but I work with Rick Derringer, and I became friends with Rick and Jenda because I did a story on them a few years ago. I would say maybe it's about 5-6 years ago. And so ever since I did a story on them, they were from this area. We became friends, and they know what I do.
Just explain, Rick, Rick's been around a long time, so there's an age range, but he's famous from the 60s. And
70s. Well, yeah, 60s.
Well, hang on, Sloopy was the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he wrote Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, I believe,
Yes.
Yes. So he's had quite a career over the years. So I'm just explaining a little bit of his background, and he's toured a lot with big names. He's quite a interesting guy over his career.
Absolutely. He was with Johnny and Edgar Winter. So he did Frankenstein, and he just actually did a big sync licensing deal with Stranger Things for Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and they're coming up to the 50th anniversary of Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and the album All American Boy, which they're hoping to re-release. So, and work on a documentary. He won a Grammy for producing Weird Al Yankovic, who's coming out with a movie this year, which is going to be a big deal. He discovered Cyndi Lauper, produced Cyndi Lauper. He played a lot with Steely Dan. The song Ricky Don't Lose That Number supposedly was written about Rick because he was in the studio with Donald Fagen, and he had given him a number of a car service or something. And he said, Rick, don't lose that number. And they were working on the song. They decided to call it Ricky Don't Lose That Number.
That's interesting.
I actually have that. This was going back to social media. We were doing a show during the pandemic. We were doing all these different outdoor adventures and a show with Rick. And I have a lot of the footage. And we went on sort of a backwoods in Arcadia. We did a kayak tour with Rick and Jenda in the summer. It was very, very hot this day. And
Jenda is his wife?
Jenda is his wife, yes. Jenda Derringer. And we were sitting at this cabin, this really cool cabin, because it is one of the guys from, is it not Marshall Tucker, Leonard Skinner, the Almond, Dickie Betts. It's Dickie Betts's, one of their friends. They're part owners of this land, which has this beautiful river that goes through it. And that's what we were doing. kayaking on that river, and that's when he told us the story. But circling back to doing the video, so I did a video of Rick interviewing his friend Les Dudek, who dated Stevie Nicks, and he also dated Cher. I hear Cher's got a new young boyfriend, but I guess back in the day, Les was pretty hot. He still is. And so Les dated Cher for about 3 years. He produced her only rock and roll TV special and her only rock and roll album.
Oh.
So anyway, he told the great story of when he lived, I guess, down the hill in LA from Steve Miller, and he was playing with Boss Skaggs. I'm just paraphrasing this story. So he was grilling out with Steve Miller, and Steve said to him, "Hey, what are you doing this week?" And he's like, "I don't know, I'm off for a week." And he goes, "Well, do you want to come on tour with me for a week? I'm going to London. I've got this gig." And he's like, "Okay, I guess so." And he goes, "Good. I've got your ticket. Be at the house in the morning. The car will pick you up in the morning." He goes like, "Okay, that's not much notice. No rehearsal, nothing." So he doesn't know anything about the gig. He knows nothing about the gig. So he goes on the plane. He's with the other musicians. They go and they don't see Steve the whole time. So Les tells the story great. So they go and they, get the equipment, they pick everything out, and it's carte blanche. They could do anything they want. They pick out all the best equipment, whatever. And so they're thinking, oh, it's somebody's wedding or somebody's, whatever. It's a birthday party for some wealthy person. And they're like, well, you have to be at this hotel on the roof because a helicopter is going to pick you up at 6 p.m. So the chopper's waiting. They get in the chopper. They still don't know where they're going, right? But they rehearsed a little bit. And so they're flying over London. They're flying. Time goes by. They're like, well, where are we going? And so they leave London. And then all of a sudden they're outside of London. And you probably know what the name of this festival is, because I don't. It's a little bit before my time. So they're just flying for like 30 minutes over a sea of people. It's like people and people and people. And they finally land on the stage and are like, well, this isn't going to be a birthday party or a wedding for someone. And it's this big festival outside of London. And this is when
Probably Glastonbury.
Glastonbury.
Yeah.
And this is when they premiered, I think they were opening for Pink Floyd, and this is when they premiered Rock With Me Baby. That was the first time Rock With Me Baby premiered. And Steve Miller was on Jimmy Kimmel telling the story just recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's still going.
Pardon me?
He's still going.
I guess so. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So these are, I wasn't there obviously at the time, that was before my time, but these are stories that I have vicariously through Rick because we were filming these people. But Rick's got some great stories too.
Oh, bet.
When all the girls went crazy over him at a radio station and they tried to get out of the radio station and they opened the door, they did the show, and they didn't quite understand the level of fame that they had. This is, I think, like right around the Beatles time, and they opened the door and they sent somebody out, and the guy came back. He only got like a few feet and he came back, and his entire clothing was all ripped off. His shirt was ripped off, his pants were ripped off, and he said that you couldn't even get out. They had to like sneak out because it was insanity.
Wow. That's Rick Derringer with Steve Miller.
Rick, no, that I'm talking about that. This was Rick Derringer when he was, I guess, when he was doing "Hang On, Sloopy," the McCoys.
Oh, the McCoy. Oh, I see. That is way back.
Yeah.
That is way back. Well, it's still iconic song. Still feels good. I used to play in a band that played that song, and it was great to play it on drums. It just had a nice feel. I like doing it. So, but we only have a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
What's going on with you in the future? You've got all these clients now. There are more coming up. Or are you looking for more, or what's?
Well, I'm always, I always look for good quality clients that I can really make a difference with creativity, with a great website. One of the things I will say is websites are very important. Your SEO is really important. So make sure your website isn't just up from like 5 years ago and you never update it. It's really important to blog, to do either vlogs or blogs all the time. Update your website. Make sure your look is up to date. Your social media has to be up to date. And it's a lot of work, you know. Content is everything. Content is super important right now, which is great for creators. So the creative community and content creators can be busy all the time because it's such a necessity.
That's what I was asking about much earlier is, at least in the case of artists, they have to be present all the time. It's not like you post something on Monday and maybe post something 2 weeks later. It's
Yes.
2 or 3 times a week, if not every day.
Every day. For the clients, you know, like we work with Skunk Baxter and, you know, I post every day, but you can use, you know, I'm not going to give you all the secrets, but there's ways to do it, but you have to have new content all the
Yeah,
time.
that's what I'm getting at. New photos, new information.
Yes.
It's like a fairly
Yes.
constant flow of something coming at you.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, for instance, it's all different depending on the genre. So if it's a musician, okay, it's a musician, a storied musician. If they have a tour coming up, you're promoting the tour dates. You want to make sure to lead the people to the ticket links because how else are they going to find out that they're going to be on tour? Social media is the only way they're going to find out unless they're doing radio buys, you know,
Right.
in that particular town, or
Right.
they're doing other, you know, other type of PR, but most of the time it's through their Facebook or through their Instagram or even through their TikTok. So that's super, super important to be up to date on that. Then it's also good to have historical, you know, Skunk has such a wonderful history. So a lot of his historical videos of him, you know, from back in the day or him recently or him performing at NAMM or doing different things like that, that's really important to share because the fan base loves it, you know.
Hey, you know,
And they also merch.
Go ahead.
Merch is important too. Yeah, go
before
ahead.
we go, because we're running out of time, I
Oh,
hadn't thought of this, but it's not like we don't know each other. We
we
actually
do.
have a, what would you call it? A YouTube uh,
Warmly talk.
called Gormley Talks,
Yes.
and we tell stories about you know, artists, mainly rock artists. But the reason I bring it up is to hype it.
And I'll be in LA in December for Skunks. He'll be at the Grammy Museum December 8th. So
Yeah,
I'll
it was
be
just announced, wasn't it? The Skunk Baxter's going to be a special night, December 8th, at the Grammy Museum, and it is open to the public. It's not free, but it's not expensive, and it's a small theater. It's really neat. But then he's telling stories, and then he'll play some music. It's very cool idea.
Love that. Looking
Yeah.
forward to that. Yes.
So is Jeremiah still there? Are you going to play us some music, or are we just going to close shop here?
I'm still here if I got the job still.
Yeah, I know you still
The
got
job
the
for one
job.
more.
I got more stories to tell, so you know we can keep talking. I didn't get to talk about South America. Briefly, I'll say I went on Cruceros Australis. You fly to Ushuaia, Argentina, or Punta Arenas, Chile, and you pick up a small cruise ship and you cruise through the Beagle Channel, and it's the jumping off point to Antarctica.
You know what we could do? I still have a little bit of pull here at the show. Dr. D was gonna cut it here for us so that we could get this posted and up right away. But if you want to tell a story or two, we could go for another 10 minutes if you guys would like that.
Sure.
Sure.
And we'll just post the show a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
So keep going. Do we want to take a break and play the music, or just keep going, guys? And then
Okay.
I will do one final song, DJ. I love playing DJ. I'll come back and do one more song at the very end.
Okay.
I'm enjoying your talk.
Okay, great. So if you guys want to hear about South Pole, should I talk about that, or we should talk more about music?
No, because the South Pole intrigues me more than the North Pole for some reason. You know, it doesn't get as much press as North Pole. So what got you there? Not physically, but although it was quite a trip to get there. But this was to do a story on it for the magazine.
Do a story on it for the magazine also, yeah. So this this PR company who had sent me to Austria a few times represented at the time this small cruise line. You can only take, I think you can take Celebrity now and only this, Cruceris Australis, because they maintain the fjords. There's fjords both in the North Pole, like Norway, in that area, and also in the South Pole. They're not as well known. So they offered, it's a 4-day, 3-night, I think, cruise, and you can fly to Punta Arenas, Chile, and then you go from Punta Arenas, Chile to Ushuaia, Argentina, and you go to Cape Horn. So they maintain Cape Horn. And Cape Horn is before they had the Panama Canal, all the shipping from Europe had to go around the bottom of South America, around Cape Horn, which is very treacherous,
Mhm.
and back up, which was also very long. It took a very long time to go that way. So all the spices, all the silks, everything that was being shipped, from Europe to South America that had to go through those shipping routes, had to go around Cape Horn. So that was really interesting. So I flew to Santiago, Chile, and then from Santiago, I flew to Punta Arenas, which is another 3.5 hours. And it's near this beautiful national park, which I didn't go to, called Torres del Paine, which I'd like to go at some point. And then I boarded the ship. And I was there with BBC. BBC was on the ship too. They were doing a sort of kind of National Geographic story. And it was interesting because I was the only American and I was by myself. So I was the only American. It was a lot of people from Europe, some solo travelers, some couples, the BBC crew, and that was it. It was really educational. It wasn't really like with, cruise ship with entertainment. So they had fabulous food on the ship. The gym, it was raining a lot. So the gym, you had to cross this very rainy, windswept deck to get to the gym. It was a mission, let me tell you. And then, to get back in. So most of the time, we just went on our excursion. So we got to see the penguins, which was great. We would go on these rigid inflatable boats in survival suits again, twice a day. So it was almost like a safari, which I've been on. So you get up in the morning, you have to be on the muster station by like 7:30 in the morning. So it's early. And then you have to get onto these little rigid inflatable boats and you go around the Penguin Island, or you go to where Pygmalion was written, My Fair Lady, because it's in Tierra del Fuego, which is the Indians that were that lived there during that time, I guess in the 1800s. And they used to put whale oil all over their bodies, and they would have these hollowed out canoes that would have fires in them. And they wouldn't wear any clothing, even though it was very cold. You're in the South Pole. But because of the whale oil and the whale fat and the fires, they would be warm. So the story of My Fair Lady and Pygmalion is really about that, which was interesting. And it was all based.
I've never heard that aspect before.
Of Charles Darwin, yeah. So that was really interesting. We hiked around that area. It was beautiful, really nice. And then we ended up in Ushuaia, or we saw glaciers calving, and we walked around glaciers, and we got off. We walked on icebergs and glaciers, and we went to Cape Horn. Sometimes you can't go to Cape Horn, but we were able to because the weather was good enough. I wouldn't say it was good, but it was good enough. We didn't die, which was nice. And then I ended up in Ushuaia for, I guess maybe I was there for like 3 days. And so I traveled all around that area, which was interesting. And then I flew to Buenos Aires, and I met my friends in Buenos Aires after that.
Nice life.
Well, this is pre-pandemic. This was before I'm glad I got it all in during the, pre-pandemic. But that's something I would definitely do again. It was very, very interesting. It really was. That was a very interesting, and it's something that a lot of people don't do. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful having you on the Jeremiah Show.
Thank you.
Wonderful having Jeremiah on the Jeremiah Show.
Yes.
And, maybe you'll have to come back because there's a lot of stories I know to be told.
Well, if there's stories, and there's also, I also believe in, using stories as education. Not that I'm trying to educate people, but what we do in social media, what we do in marketing, and what do magazines do? What does media do? It's telling stories.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
about stories. What do musicians do? They're telling stories. Their songs are stories. They're all based on something. So, storytelling is alive and doing really well. So, it's telling the story, and this is what I tell my clients, whatever genre it is, you're telling a story. It's not going to have an ending. It's the never ending story because, you're promoting the Jeremiah show. So many stories. It's a series of great stories from interesting people from all
Jeremiah,
aspects of
I
life.
think at some point you should do a show from South Pole.
Me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's Jeremiah's show, Jeremiah in the South Pole.
If you go with me, Mike, I'll bring us some good vodka. Okay, yeah, let's go. I'll bring the vodka. Nice chilled vodka.
Okay, yeah, well, that'll be necessary.
It's really nice. It's really nice there. It's not what you think. I mean, Antarctica is different, but Ushuaia it's like a duty-free area. So a lot of people buy cars there and then have them shipped back because it's duty-free.
Hmm.
Oh,
You save a lot of money that way, I wonder.
You do.
Just the
Yeah.
tax, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Tax-free. Yeah.
all right. Well, hey, listen, this is a great song off the new album, Speed of Heat by Jeff Skunk Baxter. If you haven't picked it up yet, I really encourage you to download it or pick it up or whatever you do these days with it. Do we pick up CDs, albums anymore?
He has
When
a
you
vinyl. You
download,
can buy the vinyl.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
vinyl for sure.
yeah, this album is in vinyl and CD, and of course downloadable.
I'm hearing it. I had the pleasure, Mike, you were so generous to give me the copy, or the label was so generous to send me a copy before it was released, and I was playing it nonstop. But I see it everywhere now. I see people playing it. I see it. I see the videos. I see it popping up all over the place. So I hope it's doing really well. It's a terrific album. His first official solo, right, in 10
Yeah.
years.
His first solo album ever, and he's touring. I mean, he'd never toured solo before. Solo meaning with a band, but his band, as opposed to being in a band. He's the leader of the band, and the first dates he did were in May of this year. So it's new stuff. Great.
Yeah, and Michael McDonald is featured on what we're about to play. The song is titled "My Place in the Sun." It's Jeff Skunk Baxter on guitar and Michael McDonald doing the vocals. We're going to play quite a bit of it here because it's such a great song. You're going to really enjoy it. And I just wanted to say one last thing to Skunk is a big supporter of our veterans, and being Veterans Day tomorrow, I'm sure
Yeah.
he would want us to mention that as well. Thanks to our veterans, and there's so many great, if veterans need support, so many great different organizations that Skunk promotes here. So like I think it's Angel Force and Guitars for Vets. So we'll play a Skunk commercial here for the veterans. And thank you, veterans. And thank you, Susan and Mike. Mike, it's so nice to have you back. Mike Gormley presents. Okay, Mike Gormley presents Jeff Skunk Baxter and Michael McDonald, My Place in the Sun. Here it is.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Susan, can we get a radio drop from you to promote? What do you want to promote? This would be something that we would drop into this show and other shows, and then we'll also put it out there as a single audio file that you can share. But it'll go into future shows. So is there someone or something, or promote yourself, your website?
Yeah, familybeautiful.com. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
So what you do is just your name first, introduce yourself, then obviously the website and whatever you want to say about it.
And my Instagram, can I do Fam Beautiful Mag and Media?
Whatever you want. This is your time to promote yourself, and however you want to say it. Yeah, try to keep it in 30 if you can. And then what else do we? Oh, then just say you're listening to Mike Gormley Presents, if that's okay with you, Mike, or if you want to come up with a different title.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. On the Jeremiah Show, you're listening to Mike Gormley Presents.
Do it now.
Susan's going to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Is that okay?
You're listening to Mike Gormley Presents on the Jeremiah Show. This is Susan Short. I am
You're doing a run through. Sorry to cut you off. Richard's got to count you down and start recording.
okay. Gotcha.
But if you want to run through it first before you record,
No, it's okay. I'm
and then
good.
we're gonna all. Mike, can you go off video? Richard and I will go off video, so that it's just Susan. So we can make this a separate little YouTube video and send it to her, and you can share it if you like.
Well, I
Okay,
have to leave. I have to leave to do that, don't I? I don't
Yeah,
know.
just click off your
No, you don't
video.
have to leave.
No, you don't have to leave. Just turn off the video right there. That
Yeah,
little.
but look what happens when that.
You're gone.
They're gone.
So,
but you're
okay,
still there.
okay.
You're still there.
All right.
So Susan will. There's nobody but Susan there. Perfect.
All right. Susan, stand by. All right. You ready?
yes.
3, 2, 1. You're live.
This is Mike Gormley Presents the Jeremiah Show. I'm Susan Short, honored to be a guest with FamilyBeautiful.com. Follow me on Instagram at FamBeautifulMag and Media, and on TikTok, The Classy Guru. All things media. I've been honored to be part of the Jeremiah Show. It's an amazing show, so check everything out at FamilyBeautiful.com.
All right. Very good.
Perfect. Are you happy with that?
One take, Susan.
Yeah, one take.
You want me to do it again?
It's up to you.
No,
No, it sounded great.
No,
It
it's
sounded
good.
great.
That was good. It was
You
good.
can.
But you.
I
But
do this kind of stuff all the time, so yeah.
okay.
I didn't talk about my speaking stuff at NAMM. I didn't talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's like I said.
Part
Someday you gotta
two.
come back.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
talk
right.
about all the modeling stuff I do with the cars and also. Oh well.
You got so much going on, you don't fit into 1 hour.
You're gonna have to do a part two, Mike. You already went into overtime by how 20 minutes?
About 15, 20 minutes.
15,
yeah.
20 minutes. So we got a radio. We'll have a radio version of the show. We'll have to cut some stuff, and then we've got the overtime version for the podcast.
Yeah.
And then you'll
Right.
have to schedule a part two.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. I appreciate it. Well, I hope that your listeners find it interesting. That's kind of what that's the aim, is to make it interesting for you guys. I mean, I could talk about anything you want to talk about, but if
Well, there
you
were-
think that content was interesting for that.
There are a lot of good tips in there. I liked it. I
Yeah.
think they will.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing them with us, Susan.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks very much.
All right, guys.